Welcome to the Fretboard Journal podcast brought to you by Mike and Mike's Guitar Bar, Stringjoy Strings, Peghead Nation, Isotope, and Native Instruments. I'm your host, Jason Verlinde, and before we get started, I just want to give you a quick lay of the land. As you hopefully know, the Fretboard Journal started with a print magazine 18 years ago. Our new issue is our 53rd. It is out now. It is mailing to all of our subscribers. If you finally want to see what the fuss is about, please subscribe via our website, fretboardjournal.com. We also produce an annual guitar gathering in Chicago at the famed Old Town School of Folk Music. It's called the Fretboard Summit. It takes place August 23rd to 25th of 2024. And then we have all these podcasts, one of which you are listening to. We have had 5 until now. This one, the Fretboard Journal podcast, the one that started it all. The Truth About Vintage Amps podcast, Luthier on Luthier, Life on the Fretboard with Michael Watts. We have a new Steel podcast hosted by Matt Perpick called Just Steel. We used to have Sweep the Floor, which you can still get. I was a little busy, so I put that one on hold for a while. And today we are adding one more show to our roster. Can you tell that I have an epic commute and consume a lot of podcasts? We are talking this week to our newest host, Jamie Stillway, an incredible guitarist, former podcast guest on this very show, about her new podcast called Guitar for Introverts, which we could not be happier to produce. We've been talking to Jamie for a long time about this show for us. We've gone back and forth. We've batted all sorts of ideas around. We wanted to create something different, something for people who maybe don't connect perfectly with the current crop of guitar podcasts out there. It does not hurt my feelings to say that. This is the cool thing about shows and podcasts and guitars in general. There are so many flavors. If one of them doesn't float your boat, another one might, and we get to choose. And the coolest thing of all about podcasts is they're free. You can subscribe to all of them. I don't expect you to listen to all of them. That would be crazy. But if you see one you like, you can download it. You can share it with friends. You may learn about something cool that you didn't know about before. It's what I love about this format. So on this episode, you're going to hear from Jamie. I'm going to interview her. And then we're going to give you a quick snippet, a preview of Guitar for Introverts' first episode. Her first guest is Anna Tivol. It's available now. You can go on any podcast platform and search for Guitar for Introverts and follow it or subscribe to it. It would be great if you did. We're going to have one episode per month. I know Jamie's already hard at work on episode 2. I know everybody's on YouTube. I know everybody's thinking about TikTok. I like our little podcast community. I like having shows where if you want to go for a walk, you can go for a walk and listen to a great interview and find out about a great artist. That is what we're all about. I know a lot of you feel the same way. I've been getting some great feedback on this very show. Keep that coming. Keep leaving us podcast reviews over on Apple Podcasts. And like I said, our new issue of the Fretboard Journal is mailing to everybody right now. Ben Harper's on the cover. Jamie Stillway, today's guest, interviewed Joanna Sternberg for this issue. We also have an incredible feature on the guitar built for Kate Wolf and so much more. Subscribe now. You'll get it. You're going to love it. And now here is my conversation with Jamie Stillway talking about the new show, Guitar for Introverts, the latest addition to the Fretboard Journal podcast lineup. Hey.
Hi.
Thanks for being on the Fretboard Journal podcast.
Well, thanks for having me. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah.
I've been on a couple times.
I know.
Probably a year.
A year. Okay.
Yeah.
So for probably that entire year since, we've been talking about you starting a podcast for us.
Yes, we have.
Guitar for Introverts.
Yes.
And it's finally launched.
It's out there.
Tell us about it.
Well, you had a front row seat to this process, Jason, of you asking me about it, and me hemming, me hawing, me not doing anything for a long time and sort of wondering, what is it going to be? To be honest, I'm still not totally sure, but there's an episode out. And so it's my intention to just have quiet conversations with musicians about things that maybe they don't get to talk about a lot, or maybe just aspects of being a musician that people don't get to hear about. That's interesting to me. Maybe it will be interesting to other people. I don't know.
I think it sounds great. You at least have told me when you've listened to our podcast. Do you listen to a lot of podcasts and wonder why hasn't there been a guitar podcast like this?
Yeah, I think what I'm going for here is like half like on being, but with musicians, like more, I don't know. Not to say like Fretboard Journal's only gear podcast, because you're not.
We don't really talk about gear at all compared to a lot of podcasts.
That's true.
Yeah.
So less gear than even here, which is not much. So it's negative gear.
In other Jamie Stillway news, you wrote a story for us that's finally out on Joanna Sternberg, which is awesome. Tell me about that, because I kind of threw that at you and said, do you want to do this?
Yeah. Well, now you know I'm always mostly up for a challenge, for trying things that I've never done. I've realized, like, in order for me to, I don't know, stay creatively motivated, sometimes it's nice to try different things. And when you asked me about that, I was like, sure, I'll try it. Why not? And then I quickly was like, oh, I kind of freaked out. I was like, am I a music journalist now? What do I do? Do I need a backstage pass? But I fell in love with their music, became a huge fan instantly of Joanna.
Yeah.
And, I'm excited to see the article in print.
Yeah. I mean, did doing that interview change your thoughts about doing this podcast? Like, did it reframe things a little bit?
Yeah, it's funny because, I did the interview and then I got it transcribed and I sort of used it for the article and I didn't, use a lot of it. And then going back and listening, it's like, there's a lot that can go on in a conversation with somebody that is a lot easier to transmit to someone than in the written word.
Yeah. And
I think that's probably what interests me about it. It's sort of like music. I can go back and edit it later.
Yeah.
Full disclosure, but also the spontaneity of a conversation.
Yeah. I just love that we have this like ever-growing list of audio interviews where, for as long as the servers are alive, we'll be able to hear all these people's voices and get their personality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So who did you interview first? This is out already, and I'm actually going to share an excerpt from it after our interview, so people don't even need to jump to a new channel yet.
Wow. They're
going to have to
stay where you are.
Yeah. But tell me about the first interview you did. Well,
I interviewed my friend Anna Tivell, who I've known for a long time, and I've been a fan of her work. And to be honest, I still am a little intimidated about the idea of interviewing people that I don't know. Yeah. I think I'll work up to it. And for me, I will gradually expand my reach. And so to start, I just thought, well, I will, make it easy on myself.
Yeah.
And Anna's, a great musician, a wonderful songwriter, and the perfect candidate for guitar for introverts.
Are you going to interview any extroverted people on this podcast?
I've thought about it, but yeah. I think, well, yes. I should say that extroverts will be welcome.
Okay.
Because, it's probably a spectrum, introverted to extroverted, Everybody's probably got an introverted pocket.
Yeah.
In them.
Talking to somebody you knew pretty well for the first episode, were you able to ask questions that you were always kind of like, well, I can't ask my friend this question, but I can ask in the guise of podcast hosts?
Yeah. It was interesting because for me, it was sort of fun because it's like, right, you're never going to sit down with a friend and ask questions like that. You're basically usually catching up on life stuff. And then to just be like, what is it? Ask a deep question on a deep thought about music or being a human.
Yeah.
It's like, so watch out, friends of mine.
If you see the caller ID, you may or may not know what it's about.
Caller ID. Is that still a thing?
I think it's just a phone. I'm dating myself.
It used to be a separate box. I know, right? Anyway.
So you're going to do this podcast once a month. You're going to talk to mostly introverted people. Acoustic and electric?
Yes, acoustic and electric. And as I mentioned, it doesn't just have to be guitarist. Fretboard adjacent people.
Fretboard adjacent people.
Welcome. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know, I think for me, it's sort of interesting to think about. I think why it took me so long, Jason, to get here was because I kept thinking, I need to know exactly what it's going to be when it's there. I need to have it very well defined. And quite honestly, I'm not sure. And I think that there will be some magic, hopefully, to come out of that, sort of to walk towards something and not know what's going to happen.
Yeah, we've had more back and forth exchanges about the idea of this podcast and the making of this podcast. I mean, other podcasts have been launched.
Launched and been retired. The time
Not quite retired yet, but we've had a whole bunch of them as of late. And I sort of always thought this will be the last one we put out. This will complete the family.
Well, I made it. I kept postponing it, so it had to be the last one. But I'm sure you've got more to come.
Well, we'll do more of the ones we've already been doing, but I don't know that we're going to add to the stable anymore.
Yeah.
The stable seems pretty full.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm super excited about this. Where are you at with your guitar career right now? Is it?
That's a great question, Jason.
Okay.
How does one become a podcaster and maintain their vigorous guitar career all at the same time? I still play guitar.
Yeah.
Full disclosure.
Yeah.
And I released that solo album last year, electric stuff. I did an album with Eric also in the last year.
Eric Sky.
And so currently I guess I'm sort of writing stuff. I'm not exactly sure what's next for guitar output in terms of as we all know, the world of albums and that is all shifting. So I am wanting to make weirder stuff on my own in Logic. That's kind of what I'm doing, but I get stuck pretty fast and realize whoa.
Weirder, maybe you don't even know it's a guitar, or weirder, tell me.
Probably weirder, you'll know it's a guitar. I think weirder, I think I kind of want to expand the sounds, but I don't really want to have a band per se. I think I just... probably with really bad programmed MIDI drum beats or whatever, however you even say that term. Automatic drums.
MIDI drum beats.
MIDI drum beats. Is that a term?
You grab them from the drawer with the caller ID.
That's right.
From the 90s.
Yeah. Anyway, it's just fun, but then I always get I get myself down into a corner where I'm on YouTube watching how to edit or do something weird in Logic. And I'm okay, Jamie, close the computer and go play some scales or something,
Are you you're doing all that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A fun fact. Here's a plug for your podcast, the Fretboard Journal podcast, where we are right now.
Yeah.
I love listening to your podcast because I like finding out about new things to listen to and ideas to try. And I am learning banjo because of your interview with Allison Brown. I'm taking her course.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how's it going?
Great. It's so fun. Yeah.
So what, you already had a banjo or you went and procured a banjo?
I had a banjo.
Okay.
I've had a 5-string banjo for about 6 years.
Yeah.
I've never known how to play it. I've never, I've fake played it as a guitarist would.
Yeah.
But so I'm learning the beginning stuff of Scruggs style banjo.
That's exciting.
It's so exciting. So thanks to the Fretboard Journal podcast, my musical horizons are still expanding.
That's awesome. So there could be a banjo record, or the banjo could show up on this weird record.
Yeah.
Or there
Well,
could be no record.
Yeah. Right now, it's currently about 30 seconds of just random out of time stuff that with weird drum beats and weird synthesizer showing up, and I'm liking it.
Are there musicians or composers that are sort of you're obsessing over right now where you're like, oh man, I want to be like that, but with my spin? Or are you just kind of heading into uncharted waters with the more experimental stuff?
I'm sure these waters have been charted. Is it charted or chartered?
I mean, they're both sort of nautical. I guess it could go either way.
Right. It depends if someone's taking you on the boat.
Uncharted would mean not mapped. Unchartered would mean nobody booked a trip. Yeah.
Right. Maybe it's
the rental boat.
Uncharted and uncharted.
Both.
Yeah. You know, it's like, are there any original ideas left in the world? I'm sure.
Yeah. There's
a map out there somewhere of this.
And some tourists who chartered a boat to see it. Do you play? You don't play out a lot these days.
I sure don't, Jason. It's been Are
you done with that chapter?
Well, that's what's so interesting is like, I can't decide if I'm just getting older or if I move to an island where it's more difficult to get to a gig somewhere.
Both things can be true.
Or if I've just kind of enjoyed what happened during those pesky pandemic days where I was like, oh, I kind of like being home and being quiet and still playing music.
Yeah.
Possibly D, all of the above, you know? But yeah, it's weird to realize like I've been like performing, insert my air quotes here, for like 20 years. And then, and it's never really been a big part of what lights me up about music.
I mean, I hear that. I think there are a lot of guitarists out there who are probably introverted and maybe doubting their skill set, and they would love nothing more than to have a duo like you and Eric Sky did.
Mm-hmm.
And you had that, and that's sort of like musical conversation, and now you occasionally see Eric, but do you miss that part?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Eric and I will still do shows together. It's, it's December right now. And it's sort of, it's the time of not pushing and booking stuff. And, it's like the last show I did with Eric. I had so much fun. And I'm embarrassed to say that it was like almost 6 months ago. And like we ended and I thought, oh, there'll be so much momentum. And then life happens and other things sort of happen. And then, I've sort of been missing, I will admit, like I am missing, musical conversations with people, not necessarily like for performance, but, and when I say conversations, I mean with instruments, not with talking. But
we got you covered on the other kind of conversation with your podcast.
Right.
That's so but you play a lot at home and you're doing a lot of like home recording.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever think about looping anyone into these recordings?
Yeah. And, to be honest, I moved from Portland in 2019, then COVID hit, and now I live outside Seattle. And I do know a fair amount of musicians up here. And I think I'm sort of, I just have to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Look at that caller ID.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, though, once you start to get other people involved, there is always that question of like, well, what's it mean? Or are we going to do a show? Or like, why would we put all this work into something? And I definitely can fall into that category too. So I sort of would have to find someone who's like, let's just make weird stuff and not know. But we'll see. Mm-hmm. I'm a podcaster now, so I've got some other
That's great.
Fish to fry on the front burner, or whatever the saying is.
How long is your wish list of I want to interview these people? Are we talking a dozen names?
Probably a dozen. Okay. Yeah. It's like, and I feel like there's concentric circles of like people that I know, people that I don't know, people that people that I know that know,
Yeah.
and then just reaches of, and I think I'll work my way up to the reaches of those people that I think like, I'll never talk to them.
What's the story with the tile, the logo of Guitar for Introverts?
Oh yeah. So, well, I, as you know, I was sort of stumped on the thumbnail, the cover for a little bit. And oh gosh, I don't know how much of this story would be interesting, but I'm going to say it. I fell down an Instagram hole looking at the artwork of Chris Ballou, who is known as Casper Baby Pants and from the band
Presidents of the United States.
Yeah. And he had these like drawings that were sort of, they look pen and ink, or, I don't know what the medium was, but black and white, and just they just really drew my eye in, and I was like, whoa, that could be something that would work. And so I that was I've never met him. I reached out to him and asked if I found one, and that is the one that is on the cover now. And I was like, do you mind if I use this? And he was super open to it and was like, yeah. So that's how that happened.
That's amazing. And he's on Vashon too now, right?
I think so. Yeah. So Pete
neighbor.
Droge, do you know him?
Another musician, yes.
Right. And so I asked Pete to help connect me with Chris. And it's so funny because it's like, there's like a network of musicians in the trees of Vashon.
Yes.
Where you communicate by email.
Yes.
You never see them in the daylight, the musicians of Vashon.
You guys just never have like
we're
all music nerds. Let's hang out and have a bonfire.
Not the ones that I know. Or maybe I'm not invited.
There's a club you're just not. Ian Moore is out there. A lot of people.
Yeah. I know. Yeah, it's really something that there is such a quiet community.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
It's pretty cool. It's cool to hear the story of the logo. Yeah.
Well, and, as you are aware, Jason, my greatest ideas happen in the hot tub.
You talk about this hot tub a lot.
Co-producer on the podcast. But yeah, so I was thinking like, what if I just reach out? What if I just ask? And I did. And there it is.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, Guitar for Introverts, the newest and quite possibly last addition to the Fretboard Journal podcast network, is available now. And we're going to hear a little excerpt from it with you and Anna.
Great.
And then everybody should go jump onto that feed wherever you consume your podcasts and hit the subscribe or the follow button or whatever and leave a review.
Right. I'm like, I was like, I don't know how podcasts work. We don't say smash that subscribe button, or do we?
That's a YouTube term, but I'm not sure what people are smashing because there's nothing to, your television set, but.
The caller ID box.
The caller ID, yeah. Hit that decline call and then go leave Jamie a review on Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
All right. Now you get to hear a little bit of Guitar for Introverts. This is her talking to Anna Tivell. I hope you enjoy it. Again, you can find this podcast on any platform you like. Hit that subscribe button or follow, and you will get all the episodes coming up, and there'll be one a month.
Well, first I want to say it's so interesting to me that you recorded songs on a cassette from the radio, because I also did that when I was in middle school, and I'm a little older than you. So I thought, I wonder like how vastly different our experiences maybe will be or won't be about this time in our life ingesting music. But so you sort of named classic rock and pop and perhaps easy listening. And I'm wondering, like, do you have songs that you still, when you hear them, or you can easily access them in your brain right now, like, oh man, I loved blank.
Yeah. Train. I remember.
Yes.
Drops of Jupiter. That's Train, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Now that she's out, or back from the atmosphere. I loved that. Or Meet Virginia, I remember also off that album.
Yes.
I think my sister had one of those like brochure specials for a while where we would order, you get like 4 CDs for the price of 7 or something. And we thought it was a
Right?
screaming deal, but we'd go out and we'd get so excited. Sometimes I really, in the Spotify world, I think about how much I used to covet one CD or like one of my parents' vinyl records and just like listen to it over and over. And I remember listening to like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds over and over and trying, like I had no idea what they were talking about, but something about the way the words fell, I just was obsessed. Or like Black Dog, that Led Zeppelin song.
Yeah.
I was obsessed with the words, and they felt so good to me the way they fell. And I remember,
I believe it's something along the lines of, hey, hey, mama.
so the way you move. Maybe it felt like sex to my like 7th grade mind. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but it is bad and I'm going to learn it.
Man, that's so funny because like for me in middle school, like I started playing guitar probably in 8th grade, but like I definitely learned the riff to Black Dog and thought, oh yeah,
Yes.
now I'm playing guitar.
It is. It's like permission. I always think I think that about music so much. It's like permission to have feelings that you haven't yet allowed yourself to express or something, and you can climb in songs that are expressing it, and it allows you to live in there and try it out. Or so you can try out being dangerous, or you can try out being really hurt or really in love or really free. And if you feel like you can't access those things like on your own as easily or something, there's something about it that feels really like it lets you feel what you're feeling.
Do you remember the first song you wrote? And it can be even if it was a silly song, like you thought in middle school, maybe you thought, I'll try it, or is this a later in life development?
Yeah, I didn't write songs till after college, till I was probably like 24 or something. I'd maybe like write melodies every once in a while because I played violin since I was a kid, but I never, I think I loved writing and I loved reading, and there was something to that was like a real, like happy, tunnely, emotional place for me always. But I don't know why, I just didn't connect. Maybe because violin doesn't lend itself as much to the kind of space to just like write a simple thought. It just feels so dramatic, and it's like pressed up against your throat. And
Right.
so there's something about it that I never pick up the fiddle and think like, oh yeah, this makes me think of words. It never makes me think of words somehow, but guitar really does. And I just never really had one in my hands till after college. But I remember living by myself in an apartment in downtown Portland and having a friend's guitar that they lent me for a little bit. And I was just having a hard time. I was just having a hard moment. Yeah, kind of just like a tangled up internal moment, and just writing over, knowing like 2 chords and just writing some words over it. Something about it felt so good. And I didn't think it was a good song. I think it was about whales. There's something about like putting the melody to an emotional string of words that I became so obsessed so fast with it. I remember the feeling more than I remember what I wrote.
And do you know if you said, I was going to ask when did you get your first guitar? And you just sort of answered that before I asked it. But did you ask this friend to borrow a guitar? Were you guitar curious, as it were?
Yeah, I must have been. I don't even remember that really. They might have just like been going somewhere and they left it at my house for a little bit or something. I can't even remember how that happened, but yeah. And then after that, I've never really been I've wanted to, but I've never gotten myself to be as like devotionally connected to the guitar as I feel to writing. The guitar has always, I love it, and it's just this like mystery box that is full of wonder, and I love wandering around to find new sounds, but I don't have very much drive to just explore guitar. I feel like everything that I do on guitar, any exploration I do is like directly to unlock a new like word adventure kind of. Yeah, I hope that journey will shift and change over time, because I really there's like worlds within the guitar that I crave exploring and having access to, like different colors of chords, and but I just really have a hard time getting myself not to just follow the word urge immediately. If I find a new sound, I'm immediately like, oh, I gotta, this makes me feel this thing I want to express in words. Yeah. I wish I was a better guitar player. In conclusion,
Do you
I would
remember?
like to know more chords.
Well, how did you learn your? I mean, this again, it's memories are a funny thing. So if you're like, I don't actually know, but I'm curious, like if you remember how you even learned chords on guitar, because guitar is like not like violin. I mean, people will argue it's guitar reverse, but you know.
Yeah, it's so different from violin.
Yeah.
I think of it all the time when I try to play a scale and the notes are not where I think they're going to be. I took a beginning guitar class in college. I think I finished my major a little early, and I had this one magical semester of college where I took like painting and creative writing and poetry and beginning guitar and then and linguistics, and then I just wanted to start college over because I think I took everything that lit me up, and before that I had just been like, you know, in the darkness of statistics and biology. It just wasn't my home, but yeah, I think I learned just a few simple chords in that class, and maybe learned, I just went from there.
All right, that was a taste of Guitar for Introverts. I hope you enjoyed it. Next week, we go back to our regularly scheduled programming. I've got a great interview coming up. Thanks, as always, for sending us feedback and leaving us Apple Podcast reviews, and most importantly, sharing this show with your friends.